Lakay, 1992, Part 1, The King, the Colonel, and the Beginning of a Legend, Philippine Cinema in the Early 1990s. To understand the significance of Lakay, we need to step back into the world of the Philippines in the early 1990s. It was a turbulent time. The country was just a few years past the EDSA People Power Revolution of 1986, which had toppled Ferdinand Marcos's dictatorship. Democracy had been restored, but the scars of martial law, corruption, inequality, and the sense of institutions failing ordinary people were still raw. Crime rates were high, and the news was filled with stories of robberies, kidnappings, and gang violence. Many Filipinos felt unsafe, uncertain, and skeptical of whether the government or the police could truly protect them. And yet, the cinema was thriving. For millions of Filipinos, going to the movies was more than just entertainment. It was a form of escape, inspiration, and sometimes even a moral compass. In towns and provinces, movie houses were community hubs where people came together, cheered their heroes, and booed their villains. At the heart of this cinematic tradition was Fernando Poe Jr., the man everyone called the King. FPJ, the King of Philippine movies. By 1992, FPJ wasn't just a movie star, he was a national institution. His career had begun in the late 1950s, and for over 30 decades, he had dominated Philippine action cinema. He was loved for his signature style, the quiet, humble man who tried to live a peaceful life but was forced to fight against injustice. His movies followed a familiar rhythm. FPJ's character would start as an ordinary man, often a farmer, policeman, mechanic, or fisherman. Villains, usually corrupt officials, gang leaders, or abusive landlords, would test his patience. He would endure as long as he could, showing restraint and humility. But once pushed too far, once the weak were harmed, or his honor was challenged, he would unleash his fury with unmatched intensity. Filipinos adored this formula because it mirrored their own lives. They too were patient, humble, and enduring, but they longed for a hero who would stand up for them. FPJ became that hero, not just on the screen, but in their hearts. When Lakay was announced, the buzz was immediate. This was no ordinary FPJ movie. It was based on the life of a real man, Juanito Lakay Lagasca, a police officer whose reputation for honesty and bravery made him a household name. The real Juanito Lakay Lagasca. Colonel Juanito Lagasca, nicknamed Lakay, was not a fictional creation. He was a decorated police officer in the Philippine Constabulary, later the Philippine National Police. What made him legendary was his unwavering integrity at a time when the police force was often accused of corruption and abuse. One of his most famous accomplishments was his relentless pursuit of Leonardo de Wawai de los Reyes, a notorious criminal whose activities spread fear across communities. Lakay's success in capturing and bringing Wawai to justice elevated him to almost mythical status. For ordinary Filipinos, hearing about an incorruptible, brave officer in the headlines was rare. Lakay represented what they wished more law enforcers could be: fearless, unyielding, and deeply committed to protecting the people. This was exactly the kind of story FPJ gravitated toward. By bringing Lakay's life to the big screen, FPJ wasn't just making another movie, he was immortalizing a true hero. The birth of the movie Lakay. The idea for the film was spearheaded by GP Films, with Nilo Saez directing and Jose Carreon writing the screenplay. They wanted to blend real history with cinematic drama, taking inspiration from Lakay's true exploits, but shaping them into a story that carried FPJ's signature heroic arc. The casting was carefully chosen. FPJ as Juanito Lakay Lagasca, the only choice for the role, since FPJ himself represented everything Lakay stood for. Charo Santos, Already a respected actress, she brought emotional weight, portraying the supportive but concerned family figure. Rina Reyes, younger energy, often cast in roles that appealed to a broad demographic, ensuring that the film connected with both older and younger audiences. Efren Reyes Jr., Paquito Diaz, Max Laurel, and Ruel Vernal, iconic contravida, or villain actors, who gave the movie its tension and danger. Filming took place in both urban settings to capture the grit of crime in Manila and provincial locations to emphasize Lakay's connection to ordinary people. The production aimed for realism, gritty shootouts, tense interrogations, and close combat sequences designed to reflect actual police operations rather than stylized Hollywood spectacle. Opening scenes, setting the tone. The movie begins not with immediate action, but with atmosphere. The opening shot pans over a dusty provincial town in the Philippines. Children play in the streets, vendors call out in the marketplace, and jeepneys rumble through narrow roads. At first glance, it looks like a peaceful, ordinary day, but the calm is deceptive. Suddenly, the tranquility is shattered. A group of armed men, led by Wawai, storms into the scene. They are ruthless, robbing a store and terrorizing locals. People scatter, screams echo through the air. The message is clear: fear rules here. It is in this environment of lawlessness that we are introduced to Juanito Lakay Lagasca. Unlike the panicked crowd, Lakay does not flee. He steps into the chaos with calm authority. His uniform pressed, his demeanor steady. He doesn't need to shout or brandish a weapon to command attention. His presence alone signals hope. The first confrontation between Lakay and Wawai is brief but telling. They lock eyes from across the street. FPJ delivers his trademark long stare, holding the camera just long enough to make the audience lean forward. Wawai sneers, mocking him, but Lakay does not flinch. This is the film's way of saying, here is the immovable object, standing against an unstoppable force. The scene ends without violence, yet Wawai escapes, leaving destruction in his wake. But the seed has been planted. This is the battle that will define the film. Building Lakay's character. After the opening, the movie slows down to show Lakay's personal life. He is not portrayed as a superhero, but as a man of discipline and principle. Scenes of him at home reveal his humanity. He shares quiet meals with his family, shows tenderness to his children, and endures the worry of his wife, who fears for his safety. These quieter moments balance the tension of the action sequences. They remind the audience that Lakay is not just a cop. He is a husband, a father, and a man who bears the weight of responsibility both at home and on the line of duty. This duality, the unbreakable lawman on the streets and the gentle father at home, became one of the film's emotional anchors. The early part of Lakay establishes a world where danger lurks in every corner, but also where hope persists through people like Juanito Lagasca. The pacing is deliberate. The villains are bold and violent. The hero is calm and restrained, waiting for the right moment to strike. The people, caught in between, look to Lakay for salvation. From the very first act, the movie sets up a moral battleground: fear versus justice, corruption versus integrity, selfishness versus sacrifice. After the opening standoff between Juanito Lakay Lagasca and Leonardo de Wawai de los Reyes, the movie widens its lens. It doesn't rush into relentless gunfire. Instead, it patiently lays out a world divided into two paths. On one side is Lakay, a man committed to duty, family, and integrity. On the other is Wawai, a man consumed by greed, violence, and pride. This contrast forms the central spine of the film. Every scene that follows echoes this duel, not just of guns and fists, but of values and worldviews. The next series of scenes grounds Lakay in everyday life. We see him in uniform,
giving instructions to younger officers. He stresses discipline, honesty, and respect, traits that set him apart from others in a force often viewed as corrupt. FPJ plays this with quiet authority. He doesn't need lengthy speeches. A few words delivered in his calm baritone carry more weight than shouting. At home, we meet his family in fuller detail. His wife, portrayed by Charo Santos, worries constantly. The camera lingers on her face as she asks, "Hanggang kailan, Juanito? Hanggang kailan ka lalaban sa mga walang takot? Until when, Juanito? Until when will you keep fighting men without fear?" FPJ answers not with words, but with a look, a mixture of love, burden, and unspoken determination. These domestic interludes remind the audience, behind every hero is a family that bears the cost of his courage. If Lakay embodies discipline and integrity, Wawai is his mirror opposite. Portrayed with menace by Fernando Poe Jr., Wawai is introduced in greater detail as the movie progresses. He is brutal, flamboyant, and dangerously charismatic. He doesn't simply rob for money. He thrives on chaos and fear. A memorable sequence shows him celebrating after a successful raid, surrounded by henchmen, women, and liquor. He brags about how no police officer dares challenge him. His laughter echoes, and the camera cuts to the anxious faces of bystanders. In Wawai's world, violence is entertainment, and intimidation is currency. Fernando Poe Jr. leaned into this role with gusto. Audiences of the time knew him as a strong contravida, and in Lakay, he matched FPJ's presence scene for scene. Wawai doesn't operate alone. The movie populates his world with a roster of contravida actors that Filipino audiences instantly recognized. Paquito Diaz as the corrupt politician who shields Wawai. His smirk and backroom deals represent the rot at the top of society. Max Laurel as the muscle, a towering enforcer who relishes physical confrontations. Ruel Vernal as the schemer, the man who always slips away when fights break out, only to plan the next ambush. Together, they form a network of crime and corruption, making Lakay's fight not just against one man, but against a whole system. The first true confrontation between Lakay and Wawai comes not in fists or bullets, but in words. A tense scene unfolds in a crowded marketplace. Wawai struts in with his men, shaking down vendors for protection money. Suddenly, Lakay appears. The crowd parts, whispers ripple, and silence falls. FPJ stands tall, calm, his hands loose at his sides. Wawai mocks him. "Lakas ng loob mo, Kolonel, pero tandaan mo, marami kaming bala, isa ka lang." "You're brave, Colonel, but remember, we have plenty of bullets. You're just one man." Lakay doesn't respond immediately. The camera holds on FPJ's face. His eyes narrow, his jaw tightens. When he finally speaks, his words cut like steel. "Isang tao lang ako, pero supat na yon para tapusin ka." I may be just one man, but that's enough to finish you. The marketplace erupts in applause. Wawai storms off, humiliated, but vowing revenge. This verbal duel foreshadows the violent clashes to come, supporting characters and emotional weight. Beyond Lakay and Wawai, the movie gives space to side characters who deepen the drama. Charo Santos, the wife. Her quiet strength is the heart of the film. In one emotional scene, she pleads with Lakay to leave the force and live a peaceful life. Her tears contrast with his silence, showing the eternal tension between duty and family. Rina Reyes, the daughter. Representing innocence, she becomes a target of threats from Wawai's men. A chilling phone call scene, where Wawai's henchman warns Lakay about his daughter's safety, raises the stakes. Younger officers. Several rookie cops look up to Lakay, treating him as a mentor. His lectures on integrity echo FPJ's real-life image as a role model. These relationships ensure the movie isn't just about bullets. It's about the human cost of heroism. The midpoint, a city on edge. By the middle of the film, the city is in turmoil. Wawai's gang has grown bolder, emboldened by their political backers. Kidnappings, extortion, and shootouts plague the streets. Ordinary citizens are caught in the crossfire. The mayor calls Lakay into his office, urging restraint. But Lakay replies with conviction. Kung hahayaan natin sila, sino pa ang ipagtatanggol ng pulisya? If we allow them, then who will the police protect? The line, delivered with FPJ's quiet gravitas, encapsulates the film's moral core. From here, the narrative pivots. Lakay is no longer just defending himself. He is leading a war for the soul of the city. The action style. What makes the movie's action memorable isn't complexity, but clarity. FPJ's fight choreography follows 3 rules. Every punch tells a story. When Lakay hits, it's personal. Vengeance for victims, justice for the weak. The stare matters as much as the strike. FPJ lingers before acting, letting tension build. And villains fall spectacularly. Chairs break, windows shatter, and henchmen tumble with exaggerated flair, giving audiences the satisfaction of watching evil collapse. Gunfights are similarly grounded. No fancy explosions, just sharp cracks of pistols, echoes in alleyways, and the thud of bodies falling. This stripped-down realism is what kept audiences glued. They didn't need Hollywood polish. They wanted FPJ's brand of justice, and they got it. Wawai strikes back. The second half of the movie ramps up when Wawai retaliates with brutal force. In one shocking sequence, he ambushes a police convoy, killing several of Lakay's men. The loss weighs heavily. A funeral scene follows where Lakay salutes fallen comrades. The camera holds on his face, stone-like, but with tears brimming in his eyes. It's a rare display of vulnerability for FPJ, and it deepens the stakes. Wawai has crossed the line. The final act is set in motion. This is no longer just a duty. It's personal.
1. The themes beneath the action. At first glance, Lakay looks like a straightforward Filipino action film. Guns, punches, and the clash between hero and villain. But beneath the surface, the movie explores themes that resonated deeply with audiences in 1992. A. Justice versus corruption. The central struggle isn't just Lakay versus Wawai, it's law versus lawlessness, order versus chaos. Lakay represents the hope that police can still be protectors of the people. Wawai and his political backers embody a system where crime and corruption feed each other. Every shootout is symbolic. Every stare-down reflects a nation asking, can goodness still prevail in a rotten system? B. Family as the silent battlefield. One of the most moving threads in Lakay is the toll on family life. His wife carries fear in every glance. His daughter becomes a target because of his profession. Every mission Lakay undertakes risks tearing his home apart. Filipino audiences, many of whom lived with relatives working dangerous jobs, whether in law enforcement, overseas, or in political activism, saw their own struggles mirrored here. C. Sacrifice for the greater good. FPJ's Lakay isn't motivated by glory or wealth. He sacrifices comfort, safety, and even happiness for duty. The movie reminds us that true heroism isn't about winning fights, it's about bearing the burden so others can live free of fear. This theme, timeless and universal, is why Lakay still resonates decades later. 2. FPJ's acting style, the art of stillness. Fernando Poe Jr. wasn't called the King of Philippine movies for nothing. His acting style in Lakay exemplifies why he became a national icon. A. Less talk, more presence. FPJ didn't need endless dialogue. Instead, he let his silences speak volumes. A raised eyebrow, a clenched jaw,
or the narrowing of his eyes conveyed more emotion than paragraphs of script. B. The stare down that stops villains. His famous FPJ stare is on full display in Lakay. Villains freeze, audiences hold their breath, and tension builds. This became a trademark across his career. C. Controlled explosions of violence. When FPJ moved, he moved with purpose. A punch wasn't just a punch, it was an act of justice. A gunshot wasn't casual, it was a moral statement. In Lakay, the choreography is designed around his presence, ensuring he always looked like the unshakable center of the storm. D. Humanity beneath the heroism. What separated FPJ from other action stars was his ability to balance toughness with tenderness. His moments with his wife and daughter revealed vulnerability. Audiences saw not just a warrior, but a man, someone they could trust, admire, and even cry with. 3. Cultural reflections in the film. Filipino cinema of the 1990s often mirrored the realities of the country. Lakay was no exception. A. The fear of lawlessness. The early 1990s were a turbulent time in the Philippines, with kidnappings, robberies, and police corruption often making headlines. Lakay tapped into this collective anxiety. B. The desire for a people's champion. In every community, there was a yearning for someone who would stand up to injustice. FPJ filled that role both on screen and symbolically off-screen. He became the fantasy fulfillment of a people weary of broken systems. C. Filipino values highlighted. Family first. Every decision Lakay makes considers his family's safety. Bayanihan spirit. Citizens rally behind him, showing community solidarity. Resilience. Even in grief, he rises again. The film wasn't just entertainment, it was a mirror of the Filipino soul. 4. Audience reception and reaction. When Lakay premiered in November 1992, FPJ fans flocked to theaters. Though detailed box office numbers aren't readily archived, anecdotal evidence paints a vivid picture. Packed cinemas. Reports from fans recall theaters filled beyond capacity, with people standing in aisles just to watch. Collective cheers. Audiences erupted in applause during key scenes, especially when Lakay delivered his one-liners or felled multiple enemies with a single punch. Emotional silence. During the funeral sequence for fallen officers, theaters reportedly went quiet, men and women alike wiping away tears. Hero worship. Outside theaters, posters of FPJ as Lakay were sold, and children mimicked his iconic stare in playgrounds. For many, watching Lakay wasn't just a film experience, it was a communal act of hope. 5. Behind the scenes and fun trivia. Though documentation is scarce, several stories and trivia items about Lakay and FPJ's style have circulated among fans and film historians. True-to-life inspiration. The film was explicitly based on the real exploits of Colonel Juanito Lagasca, especially his takedown of Wawai de los Reyes. Audiences knew they weren't just watching fiction, they were seeing a dramatized account of a real hero. FPJ's hands-on choreography. As with many of his films, FPJ reportedly had a strong hand in designing the action scenes, ensuring they fit his style of realism and directness. On-set camaraderie. Co-stars often described FPJ as quiet but generous on set. He was known for sharing food with the crew and checking on stuntmen after heavy fight scenes. Villain typecasting. Efren Reyes Jr. had played confrontation roles many times, but fans noted his performance in Lakay as one of his most chilling, so much so that audiences sometimes booed him in public appearances afterwards. Rural screenings. Beyond Metro Manila, The film was screened in provincial towns where makeshift theaters showed it to packed rural audiences. For many, it was the first time they heard the story of Juanito Lagasca. 6. Why these elements mattered. The combination of themes, performance, and cultural context made Lakay more than just a movie. It became a folktale for modern times, where good and evil clashed in ways ordinary people could relate to. A time capsule of 1990s Philippines, reflecting both fears and aspirations. A stage for FPJ's charisma, solidifying his role as the champion of the oppressed. Stops villains. His famous FPJ stare is on full display in Lakay. Villains freeze, audiences hold their breath, and tension builds. This became a trademark across his career. C. Controlled explosions of violence. When FPJ moved, he moved with purpose. A punch wasn't just a punch, it was an act of justice. A gunshot wasn't casual, it was a moral statement. In Lakay, the choreography is designed around his presence, ensuring he always looked like the unshakable center of the storm. D. Humanity beneath the heroism. What separated FPJ from other action stars was his ability to balance toughness with tenderness. His moments with his wife and daughter revealed vulnerability. Audiences saw not just a warrior,